This is entirely the work of Miles W. Mathis and was first published by him on the 17th of December 2017. As usual, this is just my opinion. This is concerning the baker who refused to make a wedding cake for a gay couple. He said he didn't want to and shouldn't be forced to. Although I'm generally in favour of gay rights and agree with laws banning discrimination based on sexual orientation, in this case I agree with the baker. Why? You're about to find out. It's called common sense, which is apparently now obsolete. I read an article at the Washington Post on this baker in question entitled, "The Supreme Court Cake Case Has an Easy Answer." It does indeed, but the author there missed it completely, I suspect, purposefully. He had nothing to add to the question, simply stating that the baker should obey the law and make the cake. And if we go to reports on the initial proceedings at the Supreme Court, we have some complete missing of the point. It appears these top judges can't figure this one out. They can't even come up with good questions to ask the attorneys. To me, the whole thing looks scripted to avoid sense as usual. The baker's attorney is also misdirecting away from common sense, and the easy answer, since he is framing this as free speech. That sounds ridiculous, and I have to believe it was meant to sound ridiculous. The last thing they want you doing is making sense of anything. Legally and logically, the whole question hinges on the difference between selling pre-manufactured widgets or wombats or donuts and selling special order items. It concerns work for hire. If you're just cranking out hundreds or thousands or millions of similar items, then you can't claim you are too picky about your projects. But if you're someone like me, producing very small numbers of one-of-a-kind items, paintings in my case, you can. I can't possibly serve all comers, so I can pick my projects. There's no way the government could force me to paint for everyone who offers to pay me, so I can easily refuse work without even having to give a reason. I will have a reason, but I don't have to state it. It could be that I'm too busy, or it could be that I'm just not interested in the project. And that is just how it should be. You shouldn't be able to force people to do work they don't wish to do. Forcing people to work is slavery, not civil rights. If you forced me to paint something I didn't wish to paint, my civil rights would be violated. The other big issue here, not being addressed, is your right to work with whomever you want, and not to work with whomever you want. You shouldn't be forced to spend time with people you don't wish to spend time with, for whatever reason. You shouldn't even be required to give a reason. It's your private affair. If you're selling pre-made donuts, you don't have to work with the customer to any degree. You take their money and they go. You don't have to know anything about them, and in most cases wouldn't know if they were gay or not. But if you're making a special order cake, you do have to work with the customer. You have to spend time talking to them, finding out what they want and so on. If you're just selling donuts, you don't have to care what the customer wants. You can make a donut you like, and if the customer doesn't like them, so what? Yes, you won't make as much money that way, but you're free to do that if you wish. And you know what? Everyone who works for themselves works that way to some extent. They make the things they like. That is why they chose that business ahead of another business. It appealed to them. That's the way it should be. You will say, I'm just making excuses and that I'm really a homophobe who doesn't paint gay people because I don't like them. Well, that isn't true. I don't paint men in general, gay or straight, but it isn't because they are gay or straight. It is because I am far more interested in painting women, for obvious reasons. That doesn't mean I don't like men. It just means that I'm not inspired to paint them. I like to have men as friends, but not so much as models. That's pretty much the definition of being a straight artist. Would it do anyone any good to force me to paint men? No. Supposing you could force me to do anything, the painting would be garbage, my heart wouldn't be in it, and it would show. Which is another reason I don't understand the gay couple making a big deal about the cake thing. I actually think they are agents, and this whole case is another project, because it makes no sense. If I were a gay guy getting married and some baker said he didn't wish to make my cake, I'd go and find someone else to do it. Do you know why? because that baker would be sure to do a lousy job, and I want a great cake. I want to find someone who's excited about making my wedding cake. I don't want to force some poor guy to make a cake he doesn't want to make. So that is the lines the Supreme Court case should be argued on, not free speech. In that way, the court could find in favour of the baker without jeopardising standing civil rights laws in any way. No, the baker cannot put a sign in his window saying he doesn't serve gays, and he can't refuse to sell a pre-made donut to someone who looks gay. But he can refuse work for hire, for any reason or no reason. A specialty cake is work for hire. Do you really think 9 Supreme Court justices can't figure that out? Do you really think the baker's lawyer can't figure that out? Just one more reason I believe this case is a fake. I wouldn't be surprised if the baker was also gay, in on the gag. If you still don't agree, think of it this way. This gay couple is basically arguing they have an inalienable right to hire. That right is supposed to be some sort of civil right, we are told. But there is no such thing as a legal right to hire. If there were, then every person would have equal access to every worker. Everyone would have equal access to the services of Jodie Foster, for instance. She offers herself as an actor, so why shouldn't she come and act for me? If I put money on the table, I should have the same access to her as Disney or MGM, right? Furthermore, if I don't like her normal acting, I should be able to hire her to act as I want her to, right? If this gay couple can demand any cake they want, I should be able to demand any kind of acting I want, and she should have to do it. If she doesn't, then I can claim she doesn't want to work with me because I'm a straight man and that my civil rights have thereby been violated. Or say I want to buy some art. Well, I should be able to hire Cindy Sherman if I want to. And if I don't like the kind of art she normally does, I should be able to hire her to do the art I like. Maybe I want her to paint me in a painting like Bob Ross. I will be told a wedding cake isn't analogous to either of my examples here, since it's neither rare nor art. But again, the question doesn't hinge on the cake being art or being a rare. It hinges on the cake being on a limited list of things being offered by an artisan. An artisan has a list of things he or she does, which is basically a list of things I enjoy making. Most things aren't going to be on that list. The menu is limited and a customer has no unalienable right to order off the menu. The artisan may agree to work off the menu, but he isn't required to. In fact, this would apply even to mass-produced items like pancakes at IHOP. IHOP can't refuse to serve pancakes to gays or blacks or women, but it doesn't have to offer off-the-menu items to anyone. So say this gay couple came into IHOP and demanded a pancake in the shape of a phallus. Would IHOP be required to provide that pancake as a nod to civil rights? Of course not. Well, you will say, what if the gay couple came into the bakery and tried to purchase a pre-existing wedding cake? They simply planned to take it home, take the wife off, replacing her with a second husband. In that case, yes, I agree. There isn't much the baker can do at that point, under the current laws. The cake isn't work for hire, and he can't argue it isn't on his menu. However, even in this case, I feel he shouldn't be forced to sell. It rubs me the wrong way, since I wouldn't want the government forcing me to sell my creations to people I don't like. My work means a lot to me, and I don't want it ending up in the wrong hands. In my case, that doesn't mean gay people. In fact, I have sold to gay people. Not that it was ever a factor in the sale. No, in my case, it means rich, vulgar people, who I don't like for whatever reasons. You will say that this baker disliking people just because they are gay isn't right, and I agree. But maybe he didn't dislike them just because they were gay. Maybe he disliked them because they weren't very likable. Not all gay people are likable, you know. But regardless of that, you can't force people to like one another. You can't legislate stuff like that. The point of these laws against discrimination is to be sure minorities have equal access to commodities and services, specifically things like housing, food, clothing, jobs, and so on. These laws make total sense in that regard. but you can't legislate equal access to everything, as I showed above. No matter what you do, artists and artisans are going to make what they want and sell to whom they want, and I see nothing wrong with that. As the direct creator, author or builder, they should have that right, even in the case they are small-minded about it. But this can have very little effect on the larger market because most things aren't sold that way. Houses aren't sold that way, except in the rarest of cases. Maybe a few Frank Lloyd Wright houses were sold that way by Frank, but I would say he had the right to sell his houses to whomever he wanted. If he took a disliking to me and refused to sell me his house for whatever reason, good or bad, I would think it was his right. So let's look at houses to show this isn't a matter of luxury items, specialty items or art. Houses already on the market can't be refused to gays or anyone for obvious reasons. In that case, there's no possible argument for not selling to them. But if a gay person came to a builder with plans for a house and tried to hire him, the builder automatically should have a right to say no. The builder may not wish to build that house for any number of reasons, including the reason that the design didn't appeal to him. And yes, maybe the design was too gay, whatever that might mean to the builder. In any case, the builder has the right to like what he likes and dislike what he dislikes, without having to justify it in court. And anyway, we have to assume there are plenty of high-end gay architects, so we don't have to worry about our gay person going homeless. But back to the case in hand. On the way out, I beg you to consider how strange it is that this Baker case ever hit the papers or came to trial. Consider how easy it is not to sell to someone, giving any excuse you like. We've all done it, or something similar. It's easy to get out of things without having to give your real reason, isn't it? What's the wedding date? Oh, sorry, I'm booked until then. I just sprained my wrist and I won't be making any specialty cakes for 2 months. My assistant just quit, so I have no help right now. My mother died and I have to go to Chicago for 3 weeks. I go in for surgery on my shoulder next week and will be out for 6 weeks, and so on and so on. And if the cops get called, the baker can still hedge. I didn't refuse service because this guy is gay. I refused service because he's a pushy arsehole who was rude and said I was short and ugly. It's then the baker's word against the gays, and the courts aren't interested in such squabbles. So why did this baker, being in retail and surely knowing the laws about equal access, decide to admit he was refusing services based on sexual orientation? Does that make any sense to you? Don't you think people refuse service all the time and find some way to avoid confrontation? Of course they do. I've done it and so have you. I have been refused service myself, and in a couple of cases I suspect it was because the person didn't like the way I looked. I suspect it was because of how I was dressed or how my hair was styled. It may have even because the person thought I was gay. I'm not gay, of course, but I do dress with a bit too much flair and colour for some people, so who knows? Did I think of making a stink about it? No. I just took my business elsewhere. That's the way the world really works. Which means this Baker case has all the signs of being another project. It was probably manufactured by the same people who manufacture every other project. Why? Well, we saw the answer to that above. They want to create these laws and customs by which you must perform for them. In an older paper, I recommended you boycott the billionaires and all their businesses, products and projects. But if they can pass these laws and interpret them broadly enough, you won't be able to boycott anyone for any reason. Not only will you have to sell to them, you will have to buy from them. Yes, they're slowly pushing the laws and customs in that direction, so that when they're finished redefining the law, you can be jailed or fined for not working with the rich. Boycotting the rich will then be defined as violating their civil rights. If you think that's a stretch, you need to sit for a while and chew on the question, because it isn't a stretch at all. It's precisely where society is moving. The rich see a revolution coming, and they want to prevent any manifestation of it on any level. In the past century, they have become less afraid of a violent uprising and more afraid of a broad consumer boycott, bank runs and such things. So they're revamping the laws in order to answer that fear. In my opinion, that is what the current story is about. Big mainstream stories are never about what they seem to be about. Remember that. You always have to dig deeper.